Hey folks, I thought we would talk a little bit today about charging cables and charging sockets, and then once you're totally gone asleep from listening to me, we go outside to the land yacht and install the charging socket. So most of you will be familiar with the J1772 standard of charging socket and plug. It's become pretty standard in America. It's also used in Europe quite a bit also. But the one thing that it doesn't allow, which is somewhat important to myself, is three-phase charging. Now, here in Europe and in Ireland, we have on-street charging points, and we have home charging points that are based upon the IEC 62196 Type 2 plug and socket combination. And as that standard implies, there is a infrastructure socket which is on the charging point, and there is a vehicle inlet which is, strangely enough, on the car. Now, what I have in front of me here are some of these components, and we're going to talk briefly just about the cables and the sockets. Now, I suppose one of the biggest difficulties that I have with purchasing components is the tendency for them to not actually be available to mere mortals. And I did come up against that particular problem here because what I actually wanted to fit to the land yacht is a version of this socket, which is the vehicle inlet, that would have been rated to 63 amps three-phase. Which is the type of socket that one would find on the Renault Zoe and other cars that use three-phase AC fast charging, I believe at about 44-45 kilowatts. Particular inlet is made by a number of companies, and any of them that I contacted either didn't bother to respond to me, or weren't, or just, I suppose, gave me the go-away pricing. So unfortunately I've had to settle for something a little bit less powerful. It'll do as an interim measure for me, and at least the company that I got this stuff from were quite helpful. What you see in front of you here is a 62196 Type 2 vehicle inlet. It's rated at 32 amps three-phase. Now, another difficulty with this socket was that with the attached cable, because they do sell them with the cable attached, which is quite helpful, it was only available in single phase, even though all of the pins are present in the socket and in the plug. So I had to buy the socket on its own and fit the cables to it. That was a real tour de force, because the pins are solder pins, which is perfectly fine. The difficulty is they have a little plastic anti-touch, I suppose, header pushed into the top of the copper pin. Now, of course, when I heated up the pins to actually solder them, the little plastic I suppose, press-in part started melting and falling out of the pins. So that was really interesting to try to keep those back in, but still get a ton of solder into the joints to actually make the thing work properly. But I did, in the end, achieve that, and I only lost one of the little plastic protector things here. Now, this is the vehicle inlet. So I cannot possibly get zapped by this, okay, because if there's no plug here and I put my fingers in here, well, how am I going to get a shock? It's physically impossible. Yet they insist on having these finger protector things here. So it's, I suppose, just another one of these elements. Now, apart from that gripe, it's quite a nice socket, and it has a good twist lock, weatherproof cap seal type of thing on there. Next bad point is that it was quite physically large. So as you can probably see here, I had to go in there with some precision hacksawing to get rid of some of the protrusions from around the exterior of it, so that it will actually fit into the land yacht's filler orifice. So that had to be sorted out. So that is my socket, cable assembly. I just used some flexible plastic conduit. We have on the other end 3-phase, neutral and earth for our power in 6 square cable. We then have some signal cables here. We have the control pilot and the plug present signals, and then I have 3 wires here for status indicator LEDs that you may see on the front here. There's a red and a green status indicator LED here on the front, but unfortunately they don't supply the LEDs, so I had to work in just 3mm LEDs in there and just epoxy them in place. So that's the vehicle inlet that we're going to be fitting to the land yacht. So it's a 32 amp 3-phase, so it will let me get, you know, a reasonably high power inlet to the car. Not what I was actually looking for, but it'll be a good interim fix anyway. So now that we've a socket in the car, we need a charging cable. And again we come up against some of the, I suppose, nonsensical aspects of the whole charging cable and the whole charging infrastructure thing. Obviously at this end here we have the plug that goes into the car, so it's quite a nice plug, it's quite solid, and it's got a soft rubber cap that fits on over it to protect it to protect the pins and so on from weather and abuse. So vehicle inlet side, perfectly fine. Infrastructure side is very similar, as we can see. Obviously it's got the male form of the plug here, whereas on the vehicle side we have the female form, and I actually think that they do, you know, pretty much fit together. So that's fine. Next problem. Single phase. Can't get the 3-phase version as yet. So that's a little bit annoying. I took a single phase one because obviously home charging is going to be single phase, so it's not going to go to waste, but I'm going to have to buy plug, socket, buy cable and go through the whole melting the pins lark again to make up a 3-phase cable. And to make matters worse, of course, it needs to be a 7-core cable, and of course we can only get 6-core flex of this type. So it again, just we'll be looking at this again when it comes to making up the cable, but it's just somewhat frustrating. Now, as a last gripe about this charging cables stuff, anyone that's came across these cables will have observed these little indents, particularly the one on the top, and there's 3 of them in total. There's one on the top, and then each side, probably if I was looking at this from a clock face, you've got 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock on the front of the plug that goes into the charging point. Now, the purpose of these indents is that when this plug is inserted into a charging point, there's a little servo stroke solenoid operated device inside the infrastructure socket that basically will stick a pin down into the plug and lock it in place, and that means that the plug cannot be pulled out unless unless either the charging session has been properly terminated, or that the correct person has the authorization card and all of this type of thing. Now, the point of that allegedly is to stop thugs from stealing your charging lead, and it makes perfect sense. This cable, I think, even the single phase version, I think was around, it was 220 euros or something like that. So it's not exactly a cheap part. So, having that facility there so that your charging cable can't be just plugged out or stolen seems to make perfect sense. Where it falls apart, unfortunately, is that one is much more likely to have the charging point crap out and not release your charging cable than you are to have some random thug steal the cable. And there have been several occasions where that's actually happened to people, and they've had to call out service personnel and wait around for hours and all that kind of thing. Now, when I first started driving the 3 Series and started using public infrastructure, that exact event occurred, where I came back to the car, terminated the charging session, but the charging point just decided, no, you can't have the cable back. So fortunately, after about a half an hour of swiping cards and putting the car back in charge mode and doing all kinds of things, eventually the cable popped out. So I said to myself, never in a month of Sundays is this going to happen to me again. So when I got home, got my trusty Dremel, and I just buzzed out this little plastic area here, so that the pin can still come into the hole, but if the charging point decides to try to steal the cable on me, I can just pull it out. Now, just for and against for that particular theory. But again, I'm going to be doing that to this cable because I'm not, as I say, I would be much less worried about having the cable stolen than by having the charging point trying to steal the cable. And indeed, not too many times, but at least once or twice after I had done the modification to the plug, on-street charging points tried to hang on to the cable, so I just said, sorry guys, can't help you, pulled it out. So right, that's probably enough of me complaining about the charging cables and so forth, but I just think it's important to note that while there's a lot of things around charging points and so forth that are quite well thought out, some of them are examples of armchair engineering. That's just basically not field tested before being deployed. So right, I'm going to stop talking, which is probably a good thing, and I'm going to go ahead and have a look at installing the charging socket into the car, where we will be using some of my all-time favourite component, Tiger Seal. So Tiger Seal is it comes in a tube very similar to what people would be familiar with as being silicone just for sealing around showers and that sort of thing. But this is somewhat more, what would be the word? This is somewhat more useful. Tiger Seal is basically, when it's applied, it doesn't just peel off. I mean, we've all had the occasion to have had to remove standard silicone sealers from, you know, showers, bathtubs, windows, whatever, and you can just pretty much peel it off. It doesn't stick anything at all. But this stuff, I can attest to that it sticks and it stays, and it's very, very strong. It's not cheap. It's probably about, I suppose, 10 times the price of what a tube of standard sealer would cost, but it's definitely for something. If you're going to weatherproof something, as we're going to be doing on the car now, it's definitely worth investing in a tube of Tiger Seal. Just one piece of advice: do not get it on your hands, skin, clothes, eyeballs, or any other components, because, as I said, it sticks and it does not come out. You've actually got to peel off skin to actually get this stuff off. So just word to the wise, sports fans. So I'm going to shut up and we're going to go Tiger Sealing. So stand by for more. Alrighty, so we're set up here now, and I've got the socket just threaded through, threaded the cable through the back, and I've drilled some small holes here just for self-tapping screws, and we're now going to apply the magic ingredient, the Tiger Seal. So if this goes wrong, given that I'm filming this on my phone, it's probably going to mean that there'll be Tiger Seal on the phone, Tiger Seal on my face, the car, the charging socket, everywhere. So, you know, as I say, just this could all end very badly. But having said that, I've had to clean around the inlet here quite extensively, because this was unbelievably grimy here, probably from years of the land yacht's insatiable thirst for petroleum products. So let's hope now that we're bringing that to an end. So let's do some Tiger Sealing. oh, here it comes, the black goo. So we're going to lay a nice bead of tiger seal all the way around here. And the point of this, apart from the kind of potential comedy elements here, is to basically seal around the charging point. Charging socket, I should say, sorry. Because what we don't want is to have moisture getting inside here. So apart from that, the tiger seal is also a very good adhesive, and it will help to affix the inlet to the car. So I'm going to backtrack around here now, try and lay a nice bead just on the very edge of this kind of flared out metal area here. So it's just going around the periphery, and the self-tapping screws will really only be there just to provide tension onto this seal, so that when we're actually everything is set and doing what it should be doing, it'll be probably mainly the tiger seal that will be holding in the charging point. I'm so used to saying charging point, charging socket. I'm just laying another nice generous bead here just around the back plate. Want to get as good a seal as humanly possible here, hence the phrase tiger seal. If the tigers use it, it must be good. So I'm going to just go around the LEDs around here, just make sure they're well held in. I already had them in some epoxy, but I suppose it never hurts to be sure. So I'm going to have to try and do now. Let's go around the back, which is always fun, but quite a nice mild December afternoon here, so quite fortunate in that way. Seem to be getting a kind of a mild winter so far anyway. No guarantee it's going to stay that way, of course. Could get very cold. So I've also managed to get the tiger seal. You see it's beginning to try to attack me. I mean, I suppose it is going to do that, isn't it? Yeah, tiger seal is definitely attacking, folks. Alright, let's see how that looks. And got some screws and a screwdriver. So let's see now if we just offer this up into where we want it to be located. Hopefully be able to find the screw hole now for all the damn tiger seal that we have in here. This is where, as I say, things can go horribly wrong. And they usually do for me. It tends to be a facet of my projects. And failure is always an option. So put that screw like that. I'm going to take some of the slack out of the cable there, just in behind the neck. There we go. Now, I think I've got that one to bite. Yeah, there we go. Now, I'm going to put a few turns on that, and I'll come around here then and just put in 2 more screws, which I've just dropped one, of course. Hopefully now I'll be able to locate where that screw wants to go. There we are. Again, the purpose of these self-tappers is really here just to pull the socket in tight to the tiger seal to let it set. Where's the one I dropped? Here it is. But they'll also provide some mechanical
resistance to the original, or to the Tiger Seal I should say. This one doesn't seem to want to find its location. Will be okay. Might have to re-drill it a bit. And there we go, we're starting to look good. So, there we are. There we go. You can see we're squeezing out the Tiger Seal now from behind the socket. So, there we are. There's our charging socket set up. So I'm just going to go ahead now and do some more sealing around that, and when I have that done, then I will put I have to clean up the flap. So we'll clean up the flap, and we'll come back then when we have it all sealed up. So hang on folks, more to come. Oh, don't want to Tiger Seal the phone. Use a finger that doesn't have any. Alrighty, very straightforward job. We're all done, and so pull in, open up, damn Tiger Seal, and there we go. We're all ready to fill up. So let's get a bit of fuel hose. See if the damn thing will fit. Bet you it won't probably now. Watch this. There we go. Hope don't want to get Tiger Seal on the fuel line. Oh, to my surprise, it does actually fit. So there we go. Time to fill her up. Okay, let's fill her up. Let me get rid of the damn gloves, otherwise it will have Tiger Seal everywhere, and that wouldn't be good. Right, get rid of gloves. Gloves are gone. Other end of fuel hose. Get fuel hose tangled. Get kinks in fuel hose. Fuel hose untangled. Go to fuel outlet. Then this is kind of the part where you kind of sit back and you say, hey, they ain't half thirsty, these German things. So there we are folks. That is the land yacht now equipped with charging socket. We have a admittedly single phase charging cable, but certainly going to work for home use. And the next phase of the plan now will be to sort out a charger. So stay with us for that, and or you know, don't. Kind of doesn't bother me, but yeah, we're going to have to do some AC cabling, and then we're going to sort out a charger both for the main traction battery and for the 12 volt system. So stay with us folks.